But yeah, like my main things that I do to actually get my mind in a good spot is when I wake up in the morning, I've got sort of my routine. And when I do
3, 2, 1. Hey, what's going on, guys? Old School Matt here, back with another Water Buffalo Training Method After Hours podcast today. We're blessed to be joined with a rising fitness industry YouTuber. His name is Xavier Wills. He started Desktop Bodybuilding. It's a super popular news outlet for bodybuilding, especially in today's social media, day and age where we're doing all that type of stuff with the fitness industry and whatnot. So without further ado, we want to introduce Xavier Wills on our podcast. Welcome, Xavier.
Matt, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's actually cool now that I've had yourself and I had someone else reach out to me and say, hey, I want to do an interview with you, which is sort of humbling because I'm used to being the one who's doing the interviewing of these like bodybuilders and things like that. So it's it's really cool because it's only sort of kicked off Desktop Bodybuilding about a year ago now.
Yeah, it's awesome. And, I've been following your content, everything ever since it started picking up. And I know we were talking earlier before we started the podcast, you were doing RX Muscle Australia. I'm a big fan of RX Muscle. I'd like to say friends with Dave, and super awesome the way you kind of built your brand and what you did to get to where you are and where you're going to be eventually. As we know, like your brand is starting to gain really a lot of popularity, and you're starting to get some higher, like bigger names, bigger bodybuilders on your channel. And I wanted to kind of change the maybe the narrative of this podcast and not really talk too much about bodybuilding, but maybe talk about the behind the scenes part of Desktop Bodybuilding. A big part of Water Buffalo Training Method is not only just the actual like training aspect of life, but it's also training like the mind. So usually using things and using what we like to do to kind of like push us forward and be entrepreneurial in our roots and whatnot. So really quick before we start off, would you mind just telling everybody what Desktop Bodybuilding is and how it came to be?
Yeah, of course. So like you said, I worked for RX Muscle Australia. That was years ago now. That was probably about 6 years ago. I finished up with RX, maybe a little bit less. I always base it off when I actually moved because I originally lived in Tasmania, and that's when I started with RX, and then I moved over here, which was about 7 and a bit years ago. So I started working with RX. That's when sort of the bodybuilding media even started before that. So I started a website called, I think it was Aussie Bodybuilders or something like that now. And I started doing a podcast through there. And back then it was, you didn't have these podcasting platforms where you could just go, okay, I'm going to go to this website and upload my audio. It was, you had to do it through like code and all that sort of stuff and get your link out of whatever. I can't even remember how I did it, to be honest. But it was a much more difficult than it is nowadays. So I was doing that maybe about 10 years ago when podcasting really was a much, I suppose, less popular thing. And I was really inspired by Dave Palumbo from RX Muscle and these other radio shows out there like Pro Bodybuilding Weekly or whatever it was at the time. So I really wanted to do that. So I thought, why not? Why can't I start that? And maybe it was me being a bit more young and naive that I think I could do that and actually get some views. But I think the fact that I just went out and did it sort of got some people's attention here in Australia. So I didn't have too much of an international listenership early. And then eventually I went, okay, to Dave Palumbo and Aaron Singerman at the time, who now owns Redcon1. I said, how can we get you guys out to Australia? Are you guys coming out? Can we do something together with RX? Because I was obviously a big fan of RX Muscle. And they basically said, okay, this is what we need. You can make it happen sort of thing. And they really believed in me and sort of almost, I look at it now and I had to get a lot of money in sponsorship dollars from Australian companies, which, Australian companies aren't the level of the US companies. And I was actually surprised looking back on it now that I was able to get those sponsorship dollars to get, Aaron and Dave out to Australia to cover. I'm not sure if it was the Arnold Classic Australia at that point or if it was just the Australia Pro. But I got them out. Dave Palumbo did a tour around Australia doing seminars, so I helped set that up. That basically sort of funded the trip plus some sponsorship dollars. And after that, I sort of moved out of the whole bodybuilding media side of things. You see a few things in bodybuilding. Sometimes you can focus a little bit on the negative side of things. You see some people's true colors come out and things like that. Not Dave or anyone like that. He's been great the whole time, but just other people around the industry. And it was getting harder, I suppose, at times with some of the people running the federations to actually cover the contest. Like we're doing a service for them as well. And they were making our lives more difficult because one competitor might have an issue with what we said or the photos that went up or anything like that. So things were getting tougher. So I decided to transition out of that. I worked for a supplement company for a few years that ended up being very successful, and they ended up actually moving their operations out of Australia because I actually helped them get $1 million, I suppose, deal where that was their first order, $1 million worth of product. And it sort of, my good work made me sort of redundant in their plans, which was really unfortunate. But then it sort of pushed me into personal training. And then I thought, I'm going to give this YouTube thing a go after seeing guys like Nick Strength and Power and Dave and everyone else doing really well on YouTube and actually making a good living doing it. So I thought, why not give it a go? I'll do a few videos a week on desktop bodybuilding and sort of make that my thing. And my original thing was like, okay, the reason why I called desktop bodybuilding was because I saw Louis Marco and he literally screen record his computer and just talk about bodybuilding and click between Instagram and everything like that. And I'm like, that is the easiest videos to make. And that's what I was originally going to do, but I sort of wanted to integrate my own face into the whole YouTube thing to have a point of difference. And I ended up just making it harder for myself, but it ended up working out all right, so.
Yeah, no, it's like I was saying, like I didn't know your channel obviously a year ago. Like you said, you started like a year and a half ago, you said, or about a year ago?
It was about a year ago now. I remember, well, I started in about March last year, just before the Arnold Classic, and I really wasn't getting much traction those first 20 videos or so. And I did a video on Sean Roden about him showing up in bad shape, guest posing in Pittsburgh. Yeah. And that's what actually launched my channel because I was getting hundreds of views per video. I was like, oh, okay, it's not really picking up. Like, I'll see how long I can do it. And then if it picks up, cool. If it doesn't, whatever. I did that video. It was basically on Jay Cutler, Bob Ciccarello, a bunch of top names talking about Sean Roden's appearance, what they thought. I put a thing up there saying disrespectful ? Like, is it disrespectful for him to show up in that sort of shape and be representing a Mr. Olympia title? And there's basically 4 guys that spoke on it. I had images of those 4 guys on the image, and that video went nuts. So it's got over, I think about, I don't know, probably 250 to 300,000 views now. And that's what launched the popularity of my channel. And then after that, I was doing videos and they were getting more traction. And I think it's just one of those things with YouTube. You can do it for 6 months, you can do it for a year, and you just need that one video to take off for whatever reasons. And your channel will go right up. So it's one of those things that I think some people stop right before they're about to hit success on YouTube.
I see like a kind of like a pattern with you. So let's backtrack just a little bit. So you say you were personal training in between, the RX Muscle Australia stuff and Desktop Bodybuilding, which is now like, I guess your own startup. So like in between those years, what were you doing personal training? Just like, social media stuff, or was it just in-person stuff? What was it like?
In that time, I was doing probably half coaching in terms of like prepping people for comps, half in the gym personal training where I was training, a few clients, I do early sessions like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. and normally do 3 to 4 clients in the gym a day, which I sort of forced into just by the fact that, that supplement company didn't need me anymore. So I was, not working and I really needed to work. And I went through a breakup in my relationship where, I was sort of giving her money as well. So I was like, I sort of hurt myself financially. And then I was like, okay, well, I need to do something. And I was a qualified personal trainer and I've already coached a few people. So I just pushed myself more into that. And then, and just, I suppose after a while of doing that, I just sort of got a bit sick of it. I actually moved into a sports betting business as well, which is something don't really talk about on my channel at all, I don't think, but it's something I'm passionate about because, there's money to be made sports betting, but a lot of people just don't know how to do it. So
okay, so that's like your side hustle then, would be like the sports betting, not side hustle, but it's what you make income off of.
Yeah, and it was my main income for a short period, and I did end up shutting that down when YouTube started to do really well. And then when YouTube started to do really well, I actually got sick just after that, so it was pretty unfortunate. I got glandular fever, which I think you guys might call it mono or something in America. And I was incredibly sick for about 5 months. I really didn't work. People would have noticed my YouTube. Like, I had comments on a lot of my videos saying, "Are you alive? What's going on? Like, where have you gone?" And I was just so ill, man. Like, I was, borderline being hospitalized sort of thing. So I just basically disappeared off YouTube for about 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously you're back onto it now, and it seems like everything is going well for you. You're a really busy guy from what I hear. So I just wanted to, kind of talk about that consistent progression as, I would consider, you consider yourself an entrepreneur, right? Obviously, yeah, with all the stuff you're doing and whatnot, and eventually, I'm sure you'll be doing bigger and bigger projects. And for, I guess, people that are like starting out there, and someone maybe even like myself, for someone who's like, doing something like this, how important is it to surround yourself with like the big industry heads like Dave Palumbo, and then Aaron Singerman wasn't big back then, but now he's huge, and just having like those mentors and whatnot. Do you think that was important in your your success now? Do you think it had any sort of influence or? What would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Dave Palumbo was a big one because I knew from everything I'd heard on his radio shows and things like that he expected a lot from other people because of his high standard of like work ethic. So that was something that really stood out to me. And I like when Dave came out to Australia, I was like saying to my girlfriend at the time, I want to impress him. Like I want him to go away going, wow, like this guy works his absolute ass off. And he would do the play-by-plays in my forums where he'd talk about the competitors. And I would do it, but try to do it about every single competitor that walked out on stage, whether it's bikini, men's physique, whatever it was. I try to say something about them because, you know, when you get something written about you, you feel sort of special. So if I was doing that about 300 people in a contest, every single one of those people are going to go on there. You're going to have obviously other people that go on there as well. And even some of them, like the Arnold Classic Australia, I was getting, you know, 30,000 hits and 40,000 hits in those threads on the actual forums, which was sort of like right up there and even above what Dave was doing in America at times on some of those, unless it was like the NPC Nationals or something like that in America. So Dave saw, he's like, you're commenting on every single person? I said, yeah. And he's like, wow. He's like, I don't do all the bikini girls and all of this. Like, you know, that's pretty crazy. And I basically got videos up. I stayed up. Like, I even remember one night I was sitting up editing video from the Arnold Classic Australia, and I was just falling asleep. So my head was just falling forward as I was editing it. But I ended up getting it done and getting it out that night, a couple of videos. And like Dave was like, wow, he was like, you worked your ass off. And I was like, cool. So I sort of impressed him, and it showed me how much I can work. So if I need to get something done, I'll just do it, sort of thing. So that really did help me a lot. And I've learned a lot from other people as well. Like even speaking, some of these guys are super generous with their time. Like Jay Cutler, like when we finished our interview, he spoke to me off camera for about 15 minutes afterwards and asked me about what I was doing and sort of helped me. And I'm like, I was sort of felt bad. I was like trying to get off the phone because I felt like, I'm like, oh, he needs to go, sort of thing. He's Jay Cutler, like his time is valuable. And he was sort of helping me, and I was asking him about, you know, what I should do with YouTube and things like that. And he's talking about focusing on more of the positive side of things rather than the drama stuff. I think just the longevity of the channel, because I don't want to get myself a bad name with these other bodybuilders. And I'm in, I suppose, my everyday life, I'm more about spreading positivity rather than actually, you know, like this guy versus this guy hates this guy. And I do a little bit of that because it's news, it's media, you know. If someone's having a feud with someone else, you sort of need to cover it a little bit if you are a media outlet. But just to focus on that solely, like some channels do, and just the real negative stuff, I just don't want to be about that.
And, you know, like we were talking about earlier, it took, you know, I would say a longer period of time than most people would think. You know, you started doing the media stuff in 2012 and now it's 2020. You know, a lot of people, they do something for, you know, I know you stopped for a short period of time, but I'm sure it was always in the back of your mind about wanting to do something because, you know, someone like yourself who's passionate about bodybuilding and doesn't have maybe like a competitive outlet to be like on the Mr. Olympia stage, doing media kind of helps you be there if you're not, you know, even if you're not a top competitor. And I was going to ask you, where do you see desktop bodybuilding going, and what are some of the plans that you have in mind in terms of growth and skills, and what do you want to learn in the next like coming years for your channel and for your business and whatnot?
I suppose in terms of what I want to learn, I'm not even too sure about. Like I want to learn, I suppose, how to interview better, how to communicate what I want to say better, like how to even, I suppose, brand my channel better in a way. But there's not huge things I want to learn. I want to learn how to grow better, you know what I mean? Because I'm getting a certain amount of views now, which is great. I'm getting more credibility in the industry, which is funny because I was actually getting more views before I got sick the first time. And I feel like that big gap really did hurt, I suppose, my momentum in my channel. So I'm sort of getting it back now. But I'm getting more credibility now by the guests I'm getting on. So I'm getting on Jay Cutler's. Obviously, I've aligned with Fluid Abiad and Hostile Supplements now, and they've come on board as a sponsor of the channel. So I'm getting more credibility in the industry. Like people I find are talking about me. I'll approach some of these top guys sometimes and they go, oh yeah, I've seen your videos. Like Jay Cutler said, oh yeah, you've got a familiar face. I've seen your videos and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's insane. And even, you know, talking to guys like Phil Heath sent me a message out of the blue and because I did a video on him and was talking to him and I was talking to his partner and saying, oh yeah, we watched that video of yours last night. And I'm like, that was a 45-minute interview. Like, I can't believe you and Phil Heath sat down and watched that. So it's sort of surreal, but I am getting that more, I suppose, credibility in the industry. I think with anything like this that you do, like there's probably only 2 people or something that haven't liked what I've done, have gotten upset about it and stuff, but it's sort of part and parcel of the whole industry. And, I try to be friends with everyone, man. Like, I don't like to have feuds with anyone or anything like that. So even if someone's, calls me out, like apparently there's a video done about me, which I never even want to watch because it's just negative apparently. And some people said, oh, have you seen this video this guy did on you? And I was like, I'm not going to watch it. And people are like, what? Like, and I'm like, I'm not interested, I'm not interested in I know I'm going to watch it. I'm going to be probably annoyed, but I'm just like, why would I even bother? So it's, I can't remember what your question was in the end, but yeah, I'm just more about that positive vibes.
More about, so what I'm getting to from you and talking to you about desktop bodybuilding is that you're trying to bring back something that I think too is going to be, popular in the future, is because as we know nowadays, especially, in the United States with all the stuff going on with now, there's a race war and whatnot with the man who just passed away and whatnot. But I think eventually over time, and as we see it now, like social media is starting to get more divided in a way that, the good content, something like yourself, more positive, is starting to rise to the occasion as well. Aside from like the negative stuff. I just started my own business in November of last year, and we try to keep everything positive. We don't do news media or whatnot. We just do training and, diet supplementation stuff, trying to promote a healthy lifestyle. We have our online training program. But I think that, people are starting to shy away, or maybe a small portion are starting to shy away from that, negative social media type of stuff. Like, we know that there's a lot of bodybuilding channels out there that all they do is just do negative stuff. They always just like thumbnails that have to do with things that, maybe are bad or about someone who passed away or whatnot, just trying to get clicks. And I think someone like yourself is a good example. And maybe someone like Jay Cutler and whatnot, who's always like a positive type of guy. Those type of people it's a smaller niche, but if you find the right people, it's a good way to promote your brand in a way that's going to actually impact people in a positive way. So I wanted to ask you, like, obviously you can do the easy thing and kind of like do the clickbaity type of stuff, the thumbnails that get clicks and get into feuds with people. What kind of keeps you on a positive route, like in your personal life, or maybe just something that you're planning on doing anyway? Like, what makes you such a positive person?
Yeah, and like I want to say as well, like I'm not always positive. Like, no, I don't think anyone, even Jay Cutler's mentioned, he's not always positive. And I've had my battles as well. Like, obviously the tragic passing of Luke Sando, who I sort of was becoming very friendly with. We talked pretty regularly, probably every second day, I'd say. Like, even if it was just something, like we'd send something about a joke or something like that. And even just days, several days before he passed, like, we messaged and whatnot. But I sort of resonated with some of his battles in some ways when he spoke to me about it. So I've had anxiety and I have had depression in the past and things like that. So it's not always about being positive, but I do try to force myself into that positive state of mind. But also I think the important thing is when people are like that, you need to actually address the underlying issue, why you might have anxiety, why you might have depression and things like that. But yeah, like my main things that I do to actually get my mind in a good spot is when I wake up in the morning, I've got sort of my routine. And when I do that routine, I didn't do it this morning because I jumped straight into this interview, but I still got my apple cider vinegar and water and things like that. And if I don't go back to sleep after this, I'm going to go do that morning routine, which is, getting up, apple cider vinegar, make a hot drink or whatever for later. I'll go and get on my inversion table. I'll lay there, close my eyes, do that for about 4 minutes. I feel like that makes me feel awesome. Like once it decompresses your spine when you wake up, it draws more oxygen to your brain. So I love doing that. A lot of time I'll go do a walk, go do some cardio. If I don't do that, a lot of time I just try to jump on my computer and jump straight into work after that. Because it always feels good when you're like, a lot of time I'll do maybe 15 minutes of cleaning. I'll tidy up the kitchen if that needs doing. I'll open up the blinds in the house, sort of have my own little things that I do like that. But then once I start my day, I'm like, I know if I get some work done straight away, I'm going to feel good. I feel like I've accomplished something straight away. And it gives you that sort of like, okay, I've already ticked this thing off my list. If I've got those like necessary things I've got to do, I've got to contact this person back. I've got to make a promo video for this to send to this person when I've done an interview with or whatever. If I can tick at least one or two of those things off straight away, I feel awesome, I think a lot of people, I try to always avoid actually opening up my social media straight away and replying to people on there because I feel like it sort of overwhelms my mind a little bit because you've got so many outlets of how to talk to people. You've got, you've got Instagram, you've got Facebook Messenger, you've got text message, you've got WhatsApp, you've got Skype, you've got, so many different ways of communicating with people, text messages, phone calls that you might have missed or whatever. that I feel like you don't know where to look first. And if you go, okay, I'm going to check this message, you go to the other ones and check all those, and it sort of just clutters my mind straight away. And something that I've actually implemented, which I think is really powerful, is as soon as you wake up, the first thing you want to hear is you don't want to, like, I listen to podcasts and stuff all day, pretty much. Like when I'm not editing video, I just listen to podcasts, whether it's about sport, bodybuilding, whatever. But first thing in the morning, I've got a playlist on Spotify. I can even send it to you. It's about, a lot of these top motivational speakers and big influencer stuff, guys like Eric Thomas and stuff, doing their speeches. And I listen to that. And I try to listen to that for about 10 minutes as soon as I wake up. So I'll be on my inversion table listening to that. I feel like it gets me pumped up and it sort of gets my mind right for the day. I have battled with fatigue and stuff. So I competed back in February this year. I wasn't at my best because I was going to do the Arnold Classic Australia, but that didn't sort of happen in the end. But where's I going with that? Sorry, man, it's early. But I was
morning routine sort of stuff. I like that. I like what you were talking about, because I used to do the same thing before I would do workouts, because in college, I'm a college student. I'm still a college student. When I was back at university before the virus, I don't only do the business stuff. I also have 2 jobs. So a lot of times when I'm getting to the gym, it's either early in the morning or late at night. And a lot of times it just has to be late at night. So I do watch like the motivational stuff like on the way to the gym, but I never really thought about, putting it up the first thing in the morning, hearing that the first thing in the morning. A lot of times, the first thing we do in the morning is we check our phones.
Yeah, and they say as well, like the first 10 minutes once you wake up is some of the most important, because it gets your mind sort of like in tune for that day sort of thing. So what you're listening to straight away is sort of going to influence the rest of your day. So, and it's sort of harder for me in a way, because we've got a baby that he always sleeps in our bed pretty much from the middle of the night. Like last night, 3:30 in the morning, I hear him like rocking his little cot, and I was like, okay. And my partner's like, can you get him out? Can you make him a bottle and get him out? I was like, yeah, too easy. So I got him out, put him in our bed, and he sleeps in between us. So sometimes it's hard if, sometimes the third thing I'm doing is waking up and changing a shitty nappy, So it changes a little bit, but I always try to get my headphones on, put my AirPods in, boom, and start my day like that. But especially if you don't have, children or anything like that, you really got no excuse to not start your day right, if that makes sense.
That's fantastic advice, and I think that anyone who's listening to this will definitely take that to account, and I'm definitely going to try it too. We can move a little bit more into maybe the back end of stuff for desktop bodybuilding. So something that I know a lot of creators struggle with, and I did for a little bit as well, and I'm still learning, obviously, is a lot of the creative outlets, creative stuff that you can use like Final Cut, Premiere, Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator. How did you learn to use all of those? Obviously, doing something creative requires you to have that type of stuff and that type of skill. And, who taught you this stuff, and what really made you come up with the ideas that you came up with when doing so?
Yeah, so pretty much all that stuff, man, YouTube. That's how I learned, like YouTube tutorials and stuff. So when I first started with Photoshop, I think I downloaded one that was like a 1 or 2 hour tutorial or something off one of these like torrent websites. And I found the tutorial, I watched that, and I got little bits out of it, but I felt like once I watched that whole thing, I was like, I remembered like 2 or 3 things, and I was like, oh, what was that part again? I tried to scroll back to it and find it, and it was frustrating. So once I knew a few little things on like Photoshop and even video editors as well, like Final Cut Pro, which is what I use now. I used to use Premiere Pro, which is probably, I'd say, for people a little bit harder to use. I love Final Cut if you've got a Mac. If you don't, Premiere Pro is probably the standard. But yeah, also self-taught, man, through YouTube. So I'm like, I would literally type into YouTube or Google, how do you do this on Photoshop? How do you do this? Like, how to make the background disappear, Photoshop, or whatever you're trying to do. And I just sort of taught myself, man, like pretty much with all that sort of stuff. I knew I had to do it. I knew I had to figure it out. And it was frustrating, but now I know how to use those programs. It's like second nature, man. There's a few odd things that I might go, oh, how do you do that on Photoshop? I want to do this with this image or whatever, and I might have to look it up, but it's not most of the stuff I sort of know. It's pretty much self-taught. So I think and like I said before, like the naivety of me when I was, 10 years ago or whatever, 8 years ago, whatever it was, I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. Yep, cool. And now I think you always get conditioned that like when you actually grow up and get a bit older, you start to have these limiting beliefs in your head. So I feel like I actively have to defeat those limiting beliefs by proving to myself that I actually can do something. So if you ever think, oh, Final Cut Pro, that's so hard, or oh, I want to do a YouTube channel, but how do I start? Which is, I love what you're doing, you know what I mean? Like, you actually learn along the way. Like, when I started Desktop Bodybuilding, I've got the green screen behind me now. I don't know if we're going to edit that or whatever, but I used to basically just record myself in a little box, and it would be the little white background, and then it'd be my head in there. And some people hated that, so I learned, okay, I need to do something about that. How do I remove the background on a green screen? Okay, that's pretty easy to do. Just put it into Final Cut, put the keyer effect on there, and then you just adjust it a little bit, and the background's gone. Then you can just put in an image behind you, and easy as. So it's actually not that hard. And the green screen, man, like, I've got like literally a budget production over here. I've got 2 little lights behind me now that I bought for like $5 each. This green screen was like maybe $20, probably $15, $10 US. And then I had some stands from when I used to do a bit of photography stuff. So I just literally, I've got 2 pegs, but I've just pegged them up on this, man. So it's a budget production, but once I edit it all up, it looks, people go, oh, that looks professional as. I was like, really, it's pretty cheap.
And what your main ideas on that question is kind of like keeping that naive mindset, being always like curious, but also being able to be resourceful with what you have. A lot of students in the United States, they have resources to like I do. That's why I've learned through YouTube, obviously, but I've learned Final Cut, and now I'm learning Illustrator through like a course tutorial that my school offers. So a lot of schools and kids that are in high school or college have something called Lynda Learning or LinkedIn Learning. So that's what I've been learning my stuff on. And YouTube's obviously great, and it's probably very comparable to what I'm learning through that. But I think what your main points are really important. And something else I wanted to just ask about that point was, when you put in a lot of work, and obviously what you do in being a creator takes a lot of work, especially with production value and whatnot. How do you find yourself, constantly going? And you just said you have a newborn and whatnot. What's something that you do to keep yourself going, and maybe something that you can recommend to others that might not just work for yourself, but you think there's a good, tip that everyone should do, everyone should know about?
To keep yourself going, the hard thing about YouTube is that you get burnout. Like, I never knew about the whole YouTube burnout sort of thing, but when you're going consistently trying to put out daily videos and things like that, I feel like it can become monotonous if you're doing all the same thing. But at the same time, with YouTube, you sort of want to niche yourself a little bit and have your own little reason why people watch you and subscribe. Because if you make your channel too broad, then you don't get the traction, because people are like, what am I subscribed for? What videos am I going to get? If you're getting one about politics, and then you're getting one about bodybuilding, then you're getting one about something else, people are going to just be like, switch off. They're not going to want to see your channel. They want to go to your channel and expect a certain type of video. So when you do that too much, sometimes it gets a bit monotonous. Sometimes you can burn out and go, oh, I don't want to do this. This is too hard, sort of mentally. I think it's even a subconscious thing. So I think you got to just set goals. I think goal setting is a really big thing. I've got a blackboard in my study right now, and I'm not as consistent as I should be with it, but I'm getting better at it lately. And when you tick off those goals and actually achieve them, like set achievable goals, but ones that are slowly becoming more. So my goals might be to get X amount of interviews this week, or try to get an interview with this person, or have a bunch of different ones with a certain amount of views, a certain amount of new subscribers, whatever it is. And to tick those off, like when I first started YouTube, I started getting a lot of hits. I was setting like crazy goals, and I wasn't actually achieving most of them. A few months or a few weeks I'd achieve them, but other ones I wouldn't. But people were like, your channel's going crazy, like you're coming huge. And for me, I think I was setting too, it's hard, because it's like, do you set ambitious goals, like crazy ambitious ones that are unlikely that you'll reach, or do you set ones that are achievable but it's continual growth? I don't even know the answer to that, to be honest. I mean, a lot of people say shoot for the stars, and if you shoot for the moon, and if you land short, you'll land among the stars, which I think is a cool saying. So I think goals is tough, because I don't even know myself if you should set really high goals, and then if you miss them, is there that level of disappointment where it doesn't make you want to set them again, or do you set achievable goals? I think for me, setting achievable continual growth goals. So if I've got 300,000 views this month, maybe next month I'm going to go, okay, 350,000 views or 400,000 views, not 600,000 views and doubling it. You know what I mean? And if you hit 600,000 views, then okay, next month 700,000 views or whatever,
Yeah, I think you hit it on the nail there. It's just dependent on your personality, but know that there is certain things that fit towards the personality better than others. Like someone like myself, I like to achieve goals that are a little bit more out of my reach, but I feel like I also do need to humble myself and have some sort of check to where I'm continuously growing, because anyone can burn out, obviously. I think, like you said, just, basing your personality on what is going to be best for you, just like anything else in life, like diet, nutrition, anything you do, it's setting something personalized towards yourself will help you, overall in the end game of things, make your growth or make your success the best it could possibly be. A couple more questions here, Xavier, just on, the future of your channel, maybe the future of bodybuilding. And what do you think the direction of our industry is going in, and maybe the fitness industry as a whole, and where do you see yourself fitting in that industry?
Yeah, well, I think now people are seeing people get interviews with good bodybuilders. Like me interviewing Jay Cutler, me interviewing a lot of these top pros has sort of, I think, and even other channels obviously doing it, like the Muscular Developments, the RX Muscle, the Fluid Abiards, there's a lot of channels trying to do it now. And there is a little bit of, I'd say, a saturation, because sometimes you see one guy do an interview with 4 different outlets, but it's sort of like sports media. You'll see the same guy interview with a lot of different people. But does bodybuilding have the viewers to get it? And I think bodybuilding's getting there just because social media. You're able to push it out on social media. A lot of these bodybuilders have, 300, 400, Jay Cutler, several million followers. And they're able to, if they're good enough to actually push that out there, then that's really good. So I think bodybuilding media is growing. I think there are people out there that are not doing a good job at it in terms of, they're trying, which I really admire, but sometimes they're drawing negativity to the sport. And I even see channels out there that, they're apparently bodybuilders, apparently they like bodybuilding, but they continuously bag bodybuilding, how bad the lifestyle is, and I think it's based off their experience. And I don't like that, because if your channel's about bodybuilding and you're bagging out bodybuilding, it's like, why are you doing it? So that's the one aspect I don't like. But I think overall bodybuilding media is getting better. I think the channels that are sort of, I don't want to say like fake channels, but the ones that are going to be there for a short period and going to go away, because I think a lot of people pick up that this is too negative. Like I was seeing some channels, I'm like, this is too negative. Like I don't enjoy watching this. And I think people want more positivity out of sport. So I think that's really good. And I think bodybuilding media is moving in the right direction. In terms of the sport, I think it's growing, man. Like, honestly, like people go, bodybuilding's never going to be mainstream, but the bikini, the men's physique, like think about on social media now, even if you're not in the industry, you're probably following someone on Instagram, you're friends with someone on Facebook that competes in bikini, men's physique, bodybuilding, something like that, because it is getting so big. So while it might not be in the mainstream media all the time, people are constantly seeing it, and that's giving people the ideas to actually go and compete. And I think a lot of people bag out the bikini, men's physique and things like that, but it gives people an entry level, and it even gets people competing that might not compete. So for me personally, I was doing bodybuilding. I've had a few hip issues. It's made it very hard for me to actually train legs properly while I still go in there and try to smash them every single time. It's less of a priority for me now, because I'm like, I literally was doing a transformation challenge just over a year ago, and I went, okay, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll push it. I think I can make myself look a lot better, because all I was trying to do was have a baby, just trying to be healthy, not pushing myself too much for training, because I just wanted my body to be primed to just have a baby. So I wasn't looking my best, but I wasn't disgusting, but I was less muscle, more body fat, all that. And in 8 weeks, I think it was a 12-week transformation, but I had 10 weeks and there was a contest. And I started to dramatically change. And people say, oh, you're doing a comp after a couple of weeks. And I was like, no, I'm not doing a comp. Got to about 6 weeks out, and I was like, yeah, I do a men's physique comp, whatever. And men's physique isn't my love, I've never really followed it heavily or anything like that, only a little bit at the top level. And I decided to do it. I got second at the Arnold Classic Australia to the guy that won his pro card. A lot of people said they might have had me even winning. So I was like, okay, I was close to winning a pro card my first go out. So that drew me back into the sport, and, competed again this year. And I'm probably going to compete again either later this year or next year, trying to get my pro card. And eventually, hopefully, compete as a pro, and then hopefully get to the Olympia one day. That's the end goal. But that, without men's physique, I might not have ever competed again, or I might have competed, but it might have been 5 years away. So now I'm in the industry again, competing, which I'm doing my bodybuilding media stuff. I'm going to try to launch my own personal channel as well, where I do more vlogs and stuff, and that's drawing more attention. Me, by having men's physique, me competing, it's drawing more attention to the sport, whether it's bodybuilding, men's physique, or whatever. So I think it is growing. Future for sport, I think, is awesome. People think bodybuilding is going to go away. There might be less numbers doing it at the top level, but you've got a lot of good guys coming through. You've got Quinton Araya, you've got Rafael Brandao, you've got Hunter Labrada, you've got a whole bunch of young guys. That is Sergio Oliva. He's not as young, but he's still early on in the sport as a pro. So there's a bunch of guys coming through right now that I think are going to take over top level where you got guys like Dexter Jackson and the likes going out. So I think there's a lot of good going on in the sport, and I think it's only growing.
That's awesome, man. And that was a couple good points you hit on. Like you were talking about the men's physique and just having a broader range for people to be more active in the sport. And I think even nowadays, even with the fitness industry kind of mixing in, it might, be bad for the purest bodybuilders. But I think that we all can kind of draw a line where, competitors are and whatnot, but we can all kind of get together and be, in the same realm of things. Even just people that aren't even a part of like a supplement company or anything like that. Someone like myself in my own respective business, I would love one day to, go to maybe have a booth at the Olympia or whatever my business decides to do. I think that it's opening the barriers of entries to people like myself, maybe people like yourself, where you're going to be competing. Maybe you're not going to be a top level men's open bodybuilder, but you're going to be, an IFBB pro eventually, and, maybe compete at the Olympia level, giving yourself an outlet to vlog and kind of promote your own brand and do some things and have that financial freedom and that almost like meeting your goals without being, because I'm sure, as you're growing up and me as well, like, it would be awesome to be Mr. Olympia, but there are certain limitations that we might have genetically or just with what our lives have entailed and whatnot. So we can't be at that top level, but we can kind of reach our fulfillment by just doing these type of things that kind of keep us involved in an industry that's, growing, like we were saying.
Absolutely. And I want to touch on one thing as well. And people might see my channel and go, I'm not getting huge views. I'm doing pretty well, but not crazy yet. They might see my channel and go, oh, he's interviewing these guys. He must be killing it financially. I'm really not through YouTube right now. I'm not getting the views to be killing it. It might be, I'm trying to think US dollars, maybe $700 a month or something, $800 a month. US dollars is what's coming through YouTube revenue, but I've obviously had Hostile come on board now, which is giving me some revenue, which is good. And then, you got to think about, if people want to get into YouTube, what do you want to get out of it? Are you promoting something outside of YouTube? Like, do you have like your training company, or do you have this or that or whatever? Are you selling clothing, whatever? Because there's some people bag people out for doing YouTube and selling clothing on there, and I'm like, the clothing brand, I'm like, dude's trying to make a living. Like, let the guy, like, if you don't want to buy it, that's fine. But I think people have to allow people to have sponsors and whatnot on. I mean, I see Nick Strength and Power. He's got Redcon1 that sponsor him. And people go, oh, he just vlogs Redcon1 all the time. I'm like, he really doesn't. Like, he has one little trailer at the start of his video. And if that's going to allow him to do videos and continue doing it, have the sponsor on there. I mean, people don't complain that as much that there's, 3-minute ads, 4-minute ads on TV, but they still watch it, you know what I mean? So I think that people are a little bit critical of what people do in terms of making extra money on YouTube. And if people have ads on there, I'm like, that's cool. Sometimes it's frustrating if there's like 4 minutes of pre-roll ads at the start of the 10-minute video. That's frustrating. I understand people complaining about that, but when it's like a 10-second ad and people complain, I'm like, it's not. it's a bit silly.
And to touch on this, the last point before we close out our little podcast, you said you weren't making crazy amounts of money from YouTube, and someone like myself, to where I, the money that we make from the business maybe covers the website costs, because what we do is we sell an online training program, so it covers the course builder website. I obviously give out apparel once in a while. We sell apparel. Whatever money I've made in the past 6 months has gone directly back into the business. We're about to come out with a pre-workout, so anything I'm making, I'm reinvesting back in the business. I'm sure you do something similar, but what do you do to like kind of keep your funds available? Because I currently a teacher's assistant at the university, and I also work for an insurance company. So I have basically 2 part-time jobs. Do you do something similar to kind of keep you going? I know you said you did the sports betting and whatnot, but is there anything else other than that?
Yeah, so this whole COVID thing like really did hit us pretty hard, because in Australia we've got a thing called the JobKeeper package, where if you're out of work or whatever, for whatever reason, if you're an Australian citizen, you get $750 Australian, which is probably $500 US a week. And it's just to support people while this whole thing is going on. My partner is a New Zealand citizen, so she doesn't get any of that, living in Australia. Myself, I'm still doing my YouTube thing, so I'm still making money, even though it's not as much. So I didn't get that package as well. And basically I have coaching clients, so I was making Australian dollars probably $1,600 a month or something from coaching clients, which is maybe $1,100-1,200 a month. That was gone. Every client dropped off because they're like, no gym, no point sort of thing at the moment, spending X amount on coaching, which I totally understand. I sympathize with and said, no worries. And some people were out of work or had less work or whatever. So I was like, okay, so that's one of the main supporting things. Sports betting was a huge one. at one stage, like I'll be totally honest, when I've been banned from a lot of the bookies and stuff online, because we have a lot in Australia, and like it's very different in America because you got Las Vegas where you can go into sports books and things like that. Here in Australia, we have things that are called TABs, which you go, there's literally one in every suburb where you go down, you can walk in there, chuck whatever amount of money you want into one of the machines, put your bets on, print out your ticket, you take it. But online sports betting is way more popular. I'm signed up to about 12 websites where you can go on there, but I was betting at one stage about $30,000 on average a weekend on sports, and people go, that's crazy, but it was like what I was actually putting on, that was over maybe 100 different bets. So I'm never going to lose them all, I'm never going to win them all. But on average, I was turning about every dollar I put on into about $1.10. So if I'm putting $30,000 on average, I'd probably take out $33,000. And this is Australian dollars, so maybe say 20,000 or whatever. So I was making really good money at that stage. 1 year I made about $100,000 Australian, which is maybe 60, 70 grand US, and it's tax-free in Australia too. That's the thing. So any money won on gambling is tax-free. So I was doing really well at that stage. Then I started to get banned from every bookie and stuff like that. But yeah, I've always had things that have supported my main drive. So I did have a supplement company at one point. We had a really good product. It was called Greens MF5. It was a greens, fiber, antioxidant product, sort of all put into one. The reason why I sort of stopped that was because it was like Fuad's brand. I was making something that was more expensive to make, more expensive to sell. And people say, well, we've got this greens that sells for just say $60 Australian. Mine was selling for 80, and it was a hard sell. And I wasn't as good at sales at that point that I am, I think, now, which I don't really do sales now, but I think I know more about it. So I've always had these sort of side hustles that support my main hustle. But I'm hoping that YouTube thing, like I stopped my sports betting business because I was charging people a monthly fee to get my tips basically for a while, which I'm actually going to relaunch again because I just do the sports betting, I just pump out the tips, and I'm not doing as much of the media to really push that. But yeah, I was making that, and then right before I got sick, I cancelled that. I'm like, no, I'm putting it all into YouTube and just coaching. And then I got sick, lost a lot of my savings and stuff just from being sick for 5 months, having a family and whatnot. But yeah, always had something that supports my main hustle, and then hopefully I'm able to turn this YouTube into basically 90% or 80% of my full-time work, where I don't have to worry as much about doing those other things and draining time out of YouTube. So yeah, it's a goal.
And like we were saying earlier, your side, quote unquote, side hustles have been going on for probably over 10 years now, right?
Yeah, and it's disappeared at times where I haven't needed to do it. You know what I mean? So when I was doing RX Muscle full time, I still had it actually because I was still coaching a few people, but I always like to have multiple streams of income because then if things go wrong, you've still got a bit coming in. You know, like if I didn't have my YouTube coming in, like with this whole Corona thing, everything would have gone away because sports went away, so I couldn't bet on sports. You know, so there's so many things that were affected. So my sports betting went away, my coaching clients went away, my partner's, a lot of her work went away. It was like, wow, we got hit. But it's good that things are starting to open back up. Like gyms open up in a week, I think today, where I live, because there's really not many cases compared to obviously you guys in America, which is actually surprising because you guys have opened up a lot of things before we did. And we've got, I think, in my state, we've got only about 18 cases now. At one stage, there was only 2 or something, so.
Well, I really appreciate having you on, Xavier. It's been a pleasure getting to, hear some tips from you and kind of pick you apart. And hopefully whoever's watching this has gotten some tips for themselves and any type of side hustle / business that they want to start. Hope they're inspired by your words, because I think we can learn a little bit of everything from every industry, a little bit of everything from everybody. And especially someone like yourself who's been, pushing this dream for a little while now, and it's kind of like seeing his fruits to his labors now and getting some personal recognition, I'm sure is really, really nice to have. It's been, a pleasure having you on. You want to plug up any of your, social media stuff and maybe any last words to anyone out there who's, maybe trying to start their own business or trying to get somewhere in the fitness industry, whether that be competing, like I said, starting their own business, doing their own coaching, whatever it is, or maybe someone who's not in our industry, and maybe some wise tips for them. So from someone like yourself who's put in the work, who's like put in decades of their life into something, is, getting a lot out of it now. And there's only
I don't want to like spout that I'm like this all-knowing person or anything like that. So I'll just give you the tips that I found helpful, and the advice I found helpful that's actually forced me into action or forced me to get success or whatever. So one thing is just doing it. So if you've got an idea or anything like that, don't wait till you have all the equipment. Don't wait. Like, that's why I love what you're doing. You might have the craziest mic set up or anything like that, but you're just doing it, which is really, really cool. So that's actually how I ended up starting with YouTube, but a lot of people procrastinate on that for a long time. So if you've got an idea, it doesn't have to be YouTube, it can be, something on social media. I don't want to post up this picture because whatever, just post it. And I've actually noticed lately, that's one sort of block I've had. I'm like, that image is not perfect. I've got to get the right hashtags. I won't do it. You know what I mean? I think a lot of time you just need to post it. Even if you don't put up the hashtags, even if you don't have the perfect write-up on it, just actually do it. And then, you can figure out, okay, that looks sort of crap, that photo, or whatever. You can sort of figure it out on the go. Because I look back at old videos I've done, I'm like, ugh, like I cringe, like looking at it. So just doing it, getting out there, putting stuff out there. Because at the start, if you start a YouTube channel and you're not getting many views, not many people are seeing it anyway. So even if your content is sort of average, not many people are seeing it. So you're not exposed to 200,000 people seeing your stuff. And even if 200,000 people do see it, cool, because you're getting huge views. So I think the main thing is just starting, whatever it is you want to do. Like if it's a supplement company, if it's a whatever, if you want to go for a certain job, if you want to do a course so you can get a certain job, just do it. Just get into it. And just write down what action steps do I need to take. Do that. So for me, like with my lighting the other day, I was, probably one of those ring lights would be perfect, but it might cost me $150. So I literally went to like a hardware store, got these two $5 lights. I'm like, they actually work fine. So you don't need a massive thing of equipment. Like I record off my iPhone. It's an iPhone 11, so it has some good actual video quality. But you can do a YouTube series literally on your iPhone 11 now because the quality is so good. Even on a lesser iPhone, you can still do it. So just starting is the main thing. In terms of what I want to apply, pretty much just check out my YouTube channel, Desktop Bodybuilding. Try and put out daily videos. I've got some stuff all lined up at the moment where I'm going to be pumping out a lot more content, which is really exciting. And obviously I want to thank Phil at Abiad for coming on board and sponsoring me. So I really have no problem giving that dude a plug and his supplement company because what he's done for me and also what his products are, they're really quality. So if anyone wants to check it out, it's hostile with 2 S's.com and use Xavier10, Xavier10, you'll save yourself 10%. And that obviously helps me look really good and hopefully keeps him on as a sponsor. So, but he's been super supportive, man. Like I can't thank that dude enough. And obviously my partner, Tara, my baby, Kylo, and the rest of the family. She's got 2 kids as well. And we've got another one on the way in 15 weeks, which is crazy. But when I talk about motivation and what keeps me going before, that's the main thing, man. Like it sucks at the moment because obviously my income dried up quite a lot. So I felt guilty because I'm like, oh, I can't provide them this super level of buying them whatever they want. You know what I mean? And it sucks, but I know that I'm going to come out of it and I've got that motivation constantly in the back of my head. I want to give my son a good future. Like we've got a girl on the way. I want to give her a good future. So that's my main motivating factor. And I felt like if I didn't have those things, I wouldn't have the same drive I have now. But if I was single as well, when I was by myself, I'd have motivation for other reasons. It might be, hey, I want to have money. I want to get a nice car, find a good girlfriend or whatever, So you just got to find motivation in whatever you have in life and your purpose and your reason for doing things. And even if you don't feel like you have purpose and stuff, because mental health is obviously a big issue at the moment. We've seen, a couple of suicides in bodybuilding, which is really, really sad. Just find your purpose, talk to people. If you're having a tough time, reach out because, I've done it myself. So, and I know it's hard for especially a lot of men to talk about things. So that's one thing I do want to sort of preach a bit as well is just reach out if you're having a hard time because a lot of people out there are having a hard time. You're not the only one out there. If anyone watches this, you can send me a message on social media. Yeah, like anything that can help you reach out to anyone. There's lines out there you can call, like hotlines and stuff that are suicide prevention lines. And if you make that call, then you got someone there supporting you. They're not going to judge you. They do that for a living. So if there's anything out there, you can search that stuff on Google. So just if you're having just a super rough time, just reach out to someone. So that's my main bit of advice because like when I got the news of Luke Sando passing, I was honestly in shock. And we talked about mental health, but I think he wanted everyone to think that he was good. You know what I mean? He wanted everyone to think that he's okay. Because he talked to me about it and he said about his ADHD that he has. He goes, I effing hate it, lol. But he put a lol on the end, it sort of softens it, makes you think he's okay. But if you just said that without that, I might have gone like, oh, are you okay? Sort of reached out a little bit more like that. So don't,
No, yeah, I met him at the Redcon1 gym in their grand opening. Obviously, I didn't have a relationship with him, but he's a really nice guy. He sat and talked to me for like 30 minutes. He's a really cool dude. Rest in peace. And I felt terrible when I heard the news, and I prayed for him and everything and his family and whatnot because I know he had children. But Anyways, I think those were really great words, Xavier. And like I said, I really appreciate having you on. I've been watching your channel for a couple months now, and your story of what you're going to, or what you've gone through and what you're going to be getting in the future, I can see, really, really positive results for you. And I just want to say thanks a lot for coming on. Someone who's like a couple of steps ahead of me in his career and his future in an industry that I want to be in one day. It's really been a blessing to be able to talk to you and be able to kind of get some advice and stuff like that. And I'm sure everyone else who's watching out there is definitely taking your advice and kind of seeing that, you're not maybe this 100,000 million subscriber YouTube channel, but you're somebody who's, put the work in, has been through a lot of things and has done different things, and now is, on your way, and you're seeing the fruits of your labor now. So big congrats on that. Big congrats on your newborn baby. And we really appreciate having you on today.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to say thank you to you. Like, you obviously for having me on, man. Like, first interview I've done with someone else. I've got someone else lined up as well that wants to interview me too. But honestly, it's very humbling, and I love what you're doing, man. Like, credit to you for putting out that positive stuff. And I want more channels like obviously your own and hopefully my own eventually to grow to really high levels where we're getting out to a huge amount of people. And I think some people get caught up in the numbers, and for me it is a bit more of a numbers game, but for you, you've got these other businesses that surround your YouTube and podcasts and stuff like that. So I think that's really cool. And for people out there, you don't have to get 100,000 subscribers to be impactful. So I just want to thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Xavier. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Peace.